Ask anyone about ancient stone circles, and they'll tell you about Stonehenge, that massive ring of megaliths on the plains of southern England, built around 3100 BCE, one of the most famous archaeological sites in the world. Countless documentaries about its astronomical alignments, its engineering mystery, its cultural significance. But there's another stone circle, one that predates Stonehenge by 1,000 years. In Africa, one that shows the same astronomical sophistication and engineering capability, the same multi-generational observation, mathematical calculation, and coordinated community effort. It's called Nabta Playa. It sits in what's now the Egyptian Sahara, built around 5000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known astronomical sites in the world. And surrounding those stones, archaeologists found something that revealed this wasn't just science. Dozens of cattle burials, complete skeletons carefully arranged in clay-lined chambers, ceremonially placed. For nomadic herders, cattle were everything: food, wealth, survival. To bury them whole, with such ceremony, meant they were sacred. This was a cosmic religion where the sky wasn't just observed, it was worshipped. So why do millions know about Stonehenge while Nabta Playa remains virtually invisible? You already know the answer. It's the same reason we covered in our last episode: some history gets celebrated, some gets erased. And what gets erased is always the history that contradicts a very specific story about where civilization began. Because acknowledging Nabta Playa would destroy the lie that civilization began in Europe, that mathematics and astronomy were Greek inventions, that Africa contributed nothing to human progress. What happened at Nabta Playa didn't end when the desert took over. It became Kemet, ancient Egypt, the civilization that would build the pyramids with mathematical precision that still baffles engineers today. That developed a 365-day calendar, accurate enough that we still use its structure. That created geometry, algebra, and astronomical charts that the Greeks would later study and claim as their own foundations. The civilization whose temples, statues, tomb paintings, and DNA evidence confirm was built by black Africans. Yet Eurocentric Egyptology has spent 2 centuries trying to separate Egypt from Africa, calling it Middle Eastern, claiming Mediterranean influence, anything to avoid admitting that the most mathematically and astronomically sophisticated ancient civilization emerged from Africa with Africans. This is where it starts. And here's what makes this impossible to dismiss. Nabta Playa wasn't alone. 4,000 years later, Africans in Kenya built another astronomical site, the Dancing Stones of Namoratunga, 19 basalt pillars aligned to 7 star systems, the same stars used to calculate an accurate 354-day lunar calendar. That's 4,700 years of continuous astronomical tradition spanning the entire continent. This wasn't one isolated achievement. This was a continental knowledge system. When climate change dried up the Sahara, the people of Nabta Playa migrated east to the Nile, carrying that knowledge with them. To understand what happened at Nabta Playa, you need to completely erase the image of the Sahara Desert you have in your head. Forget the endless scorching dunes. We're going back more than 7,000 years to the African Humid period. The Earth's orbit was slightly different, pushing the African monsoons much farther north. The result? The Sahara was a green savanna, sprawling grasslands stretched for thousands of miles, dotted with seasonal lakes that swelled with water during summer rains. Into this green Sahara came nomadic cattle herders. They weren't farmers tied to one plot of land, they followed the water and the grass. On the shores of one of these seasonal lakes, they built something that would challenge our entire understanding of when and where astronomical science developed. A stone circle aligned to the heavens. A calendar that could predict the life-giving rains. A ceremonial center that would become the focal point for an entire cosmic religion. Ritual cattle burials, carefully arranged, ceremonially placed. A cosmic religion where science and spirituality weren't separate. They were born together under the desert stars. This was the birth of Nabta Playa. In 1974, American archaeologist Fred Wendorf was working in the Nubian desert of southern Egypt, about 100 kilometers west of the Nile and roughly 800 kilometers south of Cairo today. It's one of the driest places on Earth. But Wendorf was looking for clues to ancient Egypt's origins. Scattered across the dried lakebed were megaliths, large stone structures deliberately arranged stone circles, burial sites, and in the center of it all, a complex of standing stones that had been carefully positioned according to astronomical alignments. This wasn't a settlement. It was a place where communities gathered for important events tied to celestial cycles. The site shows continuous use and modification from roughly 6000 BCE to 3500 BCE, a span of 2,500 years generation after generation, returning to this place, refining it, adding to it, maintaining the astronomical knowledge encoded in its stones. The main feature is a stone circle about 4 meters in diameter. Not large by Stonehenge standards, but the engineering is remarkable. Some stones weigh over 2 tons. The nearest bedrock source is several kilometers away. These weren't casually placed. They were transported, shaped, and positioned according to a plan. 2 stones stand as gateway markers, aligned to where the sun rises on the summer solstice. On that one day each year, someone standing at the center of the circle would watch the sun rise directly between those stones. That alignment was accurate for around 5000 BCE. Due to Earth's axial precession, the stones no longer point to the solstice sunrise. That's how archaeoastronomers dated the site, by calculating when those alignments would have been precise. Other stones were positioned to track additional celestial events throughout the year. While debated among researchers, evidence suggests possible alignments with Sirius, Arcturus, and the stars of Orion's belt as they appeared in the night sky 7,000 years ago. This may have been one of humanity's first attempts to systematically map the heavens. In one excavation, archaeologists found a large sandstone boulder carved into the rough shape of a cow, buried directly beneath one of the megaliths. The connection is clear. These people weren't just tracking the sky for practical reasons. They were worshipping it. The sun that marked the solstice controlled the rains. The rains brought grass. The grass fed the cattle sustained the people. It was all connected. The cosmos wasn't separate from daily life. It controlled daily life. This tells us something crucial about how African mathematical and astronomical knowledge developed. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't divorced from meaning. It emerged from people who needed to understand celestial cycles to survive, and who made that understanding sacred. Science and spirituality weren't separate categories, they were born together under the desert stars. Nabta Playa wasn't alone. In 1978, archaeologists Mark Lynch and L.H. Robbins published their findings in the journal Azania. Archaeological Research in Africa. They'd been working in northwestern Kenya near Lake Turkana when they encountered something remarkable: 19 basalt pillars, each about 1 meter tall, arranged in a specific pattern across the landscape. The local Turkana people called the site Namoratunga, people of stone. Legend said the largest pillar was once a chief who tried to outwit the devil. When he smiled in victory, forgetting the no-emotion rule of their wager, the devil turned him and his people to stone. Shepherds once danced and sang there, giving the stones their other name, the Dancing Stones. But Lynch and Robbins saw something beneath the legend. The pillars weren't randomly placed, they were aligned. Using archaeoastronomy techniques, they mapped the sight lines between the stones and compared them to star positions. What they found was precise. The 19 pillars aligned with 7 star systems: Triangulum, Pleiades, Bellatrix, Aldebaran, Central Orion, Saiph, and Sirius. These are the exact same stars that modern Eastern Cushitic peoples, the cultural descendants of the site's builders, still use to calculate their traditional calendar. The Barana calendar system, still practiced by Cushitic speakers in southern Ethiopia and northern Kenya, is a 12-month, 354-day lunar calendar that relies on observing these 7 star systems to mark the beginning of each month. And here's the timeline that matters. Nabta Playa was built around 5000 BCE. Namoratunga was erected around 300 BCE. That's 4,700 years of continuous astronomical tradition across northeastern Africa. The knowledge wasn't lost. It was preserved, adapted, transmitted across millennia and across thousands of kilometers. Around 3,500 BCE, the climate began to change. The monsoon patterns shifted. The rains came later each year, then weaker, then not at all. The seasonal lakes started drying up, and the people faced a choice: migrate or perish. Forced out by this climate change, which is geologically documented, they migrated east toward the one water source that never failed. Archaeological evidence shows settlements appearing in the Nile Valley during this same period. The people of Nabta Playa didn't vanish. They relocated and brought everything with them. The timeline is striking. Nabta Playa was actively used until roughly 3500 BCE Egyptian civilization, what we call the pre-dynastic period, leading into the dynastic period, begins consolidating in the Nile Valley around 3500 to 3100 BCE. The connection isn't speculative. It's geographic, it's chronological and cultural. And when we look at what ancient Egypt became known for, the continuity is obvious. These achievements emerged from a context where astronomical and mathematical knowledge had been sacred, maintained and refined for thousands of years. All of that has precedent at Nabta Playa. Let's trace what we've been following across these episodes. 70,000 years ago, humans in Africa created geometric patterns at Blombos Cave, developing cognitive foundations for abstract mathematical thought. 43,000 years ago, someone in southern Africa used systematic counting to track natural cycles on the Lubombo bone. 20,000 years ago, people in Central Africa created complex mathematical patterns on the Ishango bone, patterns showing arithmetic operations and possibly the earliest known understanding of prime numbers. 5,000 years ago, communities in northeastern Africa built Nabta Playa, applying astronomical and mathematical knowledge at monumental scale. 300 years before Christ, Africans in Kenya erected Namoratunga, continuing the astronomical tradition with remarkable precision. This brings us to the next chapter, because there's another piece that's been systematically obscured, and it involves the civilization credited with inventing mathematics: ancient Greece. In our next episode, we're examining the mathematical papyri of ancient Egypt. We'll see sophisticated mathematics that predates anything in the Greek mathematical record by over 1,000 years. And then we're going to read what the Greeks themselves wrote about where they learned mathematics. Herodotus, the father of history, stating that Greek geometry came from Egypt. Plato describing Egyptian knowledge as superior to Greek understanding. Diogenes Laertius documenting that Pythagoras, yes, that Pythagoras, studied in Egypt for 22 years before returning to Greece to establish his famous school. When these same sources make claims glorifying Greek achievement, they're cited as authoritative primary evidence. But when they credit Africa, making statements that don't line up with Eurocentric views, suddenly we're told ancient sources are unreliable, or they were just repeating myths. The sources are trusted when they serve one narrative, but doubted when they complicate it. In the coming episode, we prove that Greece learned mathematics from Africa, using their own words. That's the story the evidence tells. And we're going to follow that evidence wherever it leads. See you then.